Hey there, and welcome to open class number 34. Just make sure my mic is working. Hope you're doing really, really well. And we have some really good questions here. I hope this episode will bring a lot of value to everyone that tunes in. So without further ado, let's jump in here. I said this yesterday, but I'll say it again. Sasha Stevens, author of The Effortless Sleep Method, is coming on as a podcast guest on Friday. I'll record it Friday, and I'll probably upload it the same day. Super excited about that. So look out for an episode with the one and only Sasha Stevens. Okay, cool. So let us go over some questions here. We have, as I said, 6 of them. And the first one is from Bijal. Let's read this. Hi, Daniel. Can I ask another question, please? Of course. Any tips for restless legs? I get a burning sensation which prevents me from sleeping. I have seen many success stories, but none with this condition or pain and how they manage to sleep. Does CBT help with people who have discomfort in their body? My restless legs started 3 months of sleeping 3 or 4 hours, and I'm hopeful it's caused lack of sleep. And when I sleep more, this won't be a problem. Thank you. Anytime. Nothing here is medical advice, just general thoughts and comments here. Restless legs is generally it's fairly easy to tell if somebody has it. It is, you have like a tingling, uncomfortable, creepy, crawly sensation in your legs that occur when you're about to go to sleep, and it improves with the walking around. That's kind of a classic story. When you have more like pain, then that's typically not restless legs. When it's more like one side versus the other, typically not restless legs. If it doesn't become better by walking around, probably not it. So I can't say what's happening with you, but I want to say this, that pain, discomfort, tingling, tinnitus, eye pain, like irritation from the eyes, are very common when you have insomnia. And as you know, anyone who follows this channel knows, insomnia really is it's a form of anxiety. And something I read the other day in a book called Unlearning Your Pain, I believe it is. It talks a lot about mind-body syndrome. The one thing that I really picked up that I think was really important from that book was, if you have an intense day at work, kind of like it was emotionally intense or just like very busy, you come home and you're like, I have a headache, I have to take some Motrin. Nobody bats an eye. That's like, yeah, of course, that can happen. Or you have a big presentation and you have like this knot in your stomach. You really feel this tension in your stomach. Nothing strange with that, right? Here's the thing. In some circumstances, we're not surprised at all when our thoughts, what we think about produces a physical symptom, right? You think a lot, it gives you a headache. We're like, that's not surprising at all. And so it's not actually that, knowing that, it's not that far off to think of how other sensations from our bodies can come from how we think. And, that's one reason that you have a lot of these, like a mind-body connection. You have a lot of like tingling, tension, a pain, discomfort in your body when you have insomnia. That's one reason. Another reason is that hyperarousal, where you're really monitoring your body. You feel things, you sense things that you normally wouldn't. So I've come across many stories of people who've had all these tension, all these sensations, that when they're not hyperaroused anymore, when the anxiety is gone, when they are not focusing so much on sleep and thinking about sleep and being worried about it, that gets better. So I'm very hopeful that will happen for you, Bijal. So thank you for submitting this question. All right. So with that said, we will move right along to a question from Alex. And interestingly, this is not Alex from Talking Insomnia number 16, I believe. And this is not Alex with the hypnic awareness, which I thought initially, but a little bit of, a similar topic from another Alex. Let's read this. Hi, Daniel. I emailed you at the beginning of October regarding my sleep. I'm humbled to let you know I've improved since then. Very happy to hear this. The jerks have calmed down for the most part, and I am able to fall asleep much faster. This is by no means a success story yet, but I just wanted to update you because I'm looking for some advice. I'm still fairly anxious about my progress with continued fear that I will plateau and get stuck. Currently not satisfied for where I am at the moment. I have implemented sleep restriction therapy with a window from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. My sleep from when I first emailed you to now has evolved sort of like this. Number one, jerking is making it hard to fall asleep and stay asleep. Jerking throughout the night, low quality sleep, high anxiety. Number two, jerking has calmed down, easier to fall asleep, waking up a couple of times after maybe 1.5 to 2 hours, and a night with some difficulty, 6 to 7 hour sleep window. Improved sleep quality, but still fairly anxiously feeling better in the day. Number three, jerks come sometimes, but they don't bother me. No trouble falling asleep. Notice I'm awake less. I'm sleeping a little bit longer in between each wake up, 2 to 3 hours. Ease of going back to sleep heavily varies. Sleep quality better, anxiety lurking. Number four, occurrences of jerks no longer bothering me. Fall asleep without realizing it. This past week, I want to say I've been sleeping around midnight, to waking up 4 or 5. That time I wake up, I find it difficult to fall back asleep. During the last hour I'm in bed, it doesn't really feel like I'm asleep, but rather drifting in and out of consciousness. Anxiety about sleep is still there, feeling functional during the day. Questions I have. I don't know why, but I'm worried I might have sleep apnea since sleep maintenance, early awakening insomnia is a symptom of it. I also snore, but my partner says it's not loud and I have never witnessed any sort of choking, gasping, breathing cessation. Could this just be anxiety telling me, be careful, this could be something else? When should I worry about underlying causes? Would it be worth getting a sleep study? Does it sound like I'm on the right track to getting my old sleeping back? What else can I do to improve staying asleep? Okay, very good. Alex, first of all, I'm really, really happy to read this. And here, like, I think the number one, the most important thing in my opinion here is this, that if you imagine a person who is super, super possessive of their sleep, they don't accept a minute of lost sleep. That's unacceptable to them. They do anything they can to maintain every single second of sleep, right? That person is going to have a horrible time sleeping. Live here, Cedar says, how's it going? I'm good. I'm good. Hope you're good too. Thanks for checking in. That person is going to have a real hard time sleeping, right? Versus somebody who's okay with not sleeping much. It doesn't, either way, they're kind of unattached. They're not attached to the outcome, as I like to say. That person will have no trouble sleeping, really, because if they sleep a lot or little, both are okay to them. There's no pressure at all, right? So during your journey, you have become more like the second person. You have gone from being like, really like, I gotta get sleep. I'm really trying. I'm trying to figure it out, to like, I'm more accepting, more like, if I don't sleep that much, that's okay. Because if you hadn't gone in that direction, you had not been sleeping better. So you have become more okay with being awake at night. You are trying less. You're less possessive, obsessive about your sleep, okay? And what happens is often that you see exactly what you described, like, I've gotten better, but how do I get kind of that last stretch? How do I take those last steps? And it is really more of the same. It's always more of the same. That's the answer. It's more of like, okay, I'm going to stop checking the time completely. I'm going to stop monitoring my sleep completely. I'm going to be, if I don't sleep much, that's going to be okay. I'm going to find reasons for me to say that if I sleep very little or have a lot of jerks, that's going to be okay. Always going towards, towards acceptance, being willing to be awake at night, etc. And if you do that, you'll do really, really well. If you hit a plateau, that's because you're becoming more resistant again. It's because if you hit a plateau, it's because you want to make more progress. If you hit a plateau, it's because you're trying harder again, all right? So as long as you continue the path of acceptance, you'll do really, really, really well. The other question here was about sleep apnea. Again, talk to your doctor. No medical advice here on this channel. My general thinking here is that it's very easy to tell typically a person who has sleep apnea from somebody who does not, because there's no emotional attachment to sleep apnea. It's just somebody who snorts awake and they're like, why am I awake again? Okay, fall back, sleep, snort awake again. But they're not worried. They're not emotionally involved with that at all, right? Versus somebody who has insomnia, they're wondering, could it be this? Could it be that? What if it's this? What if it's that? And often the struggle, like it takes a long time to fall asleep. It takes a long time to fall back asleep. Why can't I sleep more? That's insomnia, right? Now, there's a very good question. It's like, could this be my brain just going like, what if you're missing something? I think if you scroll through the last couple of Insomnia insights, there's one about the concern about the type 2 error. The brain is often concerned that it's missing something. What if I miss something important, right? The brain always tries to keep you safe. So that's why the brain often serves you with thoughts like, what if it's that? What if it's that? What if it's that? But when you understand that is a way the brain is trying to keep you safe, when you understand where those thoughts come from, it becomes much easier to become accepting against, like, okay, I understand what you're doing, brain. You're looking out for me, but and then you can go if you think it's appropriate. But I know nothing's wrong there. I know there's no underlying thing. It is just anxiety. It's just anxiety. So that makes it much easier. And I think one kind of low-hanging fruit here is the timeless night. If you don't know what's time you woke up, if you don't know how much you slept, that's a very powerful way of letting go of control. And I think having that sleep window can be a good starting point, but I think a timeless window is even better. And that's where my philosophy is really going, from the sleep window to the timeless window. So instead of being like, I get up at 6, I go to bed not before 11, be like, okay, I stop checking the time at 10, and then I just go by how I feel. That timeless window, letting go of control, I think is super helpful. So Alex, I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you for sharing your progress. I think that's exactly the real nice thing with Alex's progress here is that the focus is not on having less jerks. It is they bother me less, super, super important point, which I always try to come across as like, if you don't try to figure out why you have jerks, if you don't try to prevent them, etc., they will bother you less to a point where you don't even pay attention. Everybody has them, but if they don't bother you, that's good. So Alex, hang in there. I think you've done fantastic work. Well done, and you'll get there. Basically, one last thing for Alex here is like, everything is kind of paradoxical in the sleep world. So how do you get to the last step? How do you get over that last hump? By not wanting to get over the last hump, by accepting the way things are. I think Alex, you said somewhere there, like, I'm not happy with the way things are now. Paradoxically, it is when you are pretty happy with how things are now, when you don't try to get that last bit, that's when you actually get that last bit. So hang in there, Alex. Okay, some live questions here. Sarah says, sometimes I'm anxious and I stay up all night, then I can't go back to sleep. Is this because my brain is hyperactive? So what's a convenient way for me to make myself fall back asleep? I also have my flank jerks before I fall asleep. All right, these are very good questions. And yes, I would say your mind is kind of hyperactive, hyper aroused. That's why that's why insomnia happens. That's why we struggle with sleep. Now, then the question, of course, becomes, so how can I calm my brain down? How can I kind of make it less hyperactive? That's very tricky, because it's just like insomnia. The more you try to make yourself sleep, the more you struggle. What you resist persists. The more you try to make yourself calm, the more agitated you become. So there's no, like, if there was an easy fix here, or easy answer, easy reply here, then there wouldn't be, and this channel wouldn't be needed, And so what should you be doing? Education is the key, because when you understand something, then there's nothing to kind of ponder or think about. When you understand sleep, when you understand insomnia, then you're like, oh, I get it. Then you stop thinking about it. Then you're less interested, actually, because you understand it. And then that hyperactivity goes down. So I think some great places to start is, if you go to any recent episode here, go into the description, check the This Is Natto playlist and the Success Stories playlist. I think those are great places to start learning, and then you'll do really well. And as for the My Flunk Jerks Before I Fall Asleep, this is what Alex just talked about. And we have another playlist for that in the description to any new video. Check it out. The short answer to that one is, when you stop trying to prevent the jerks, and when you see that everybody has them, but the more you focus on them, the more problematic they become. That is really the key to those ones. Stay in touch. Okie dokie. We looked at Alex's question, and we will move ahead with a question from Nika, I believe. Yes, here it is. Hello, I've just discovered your channel about insomnia. I always struggle with light sleep, but still manage to get back to sleep. Even if I woke up, I'm thinking, have we answered this one before? It just seems very familiar. But anyway, let's go through this. Now I'm experiencing a whole different problem. It's hard for me to drift into deep sleep. I'm so tired all days, can't even take a nap anymore. When I go to sleep, I would sleep for 2 hours and then wake up at the same hour every night. Also, when I try to sleep, my heart is racing, like it's gonna explode. As I'm reading this, I realized we already answered this one in a previous episode with Coach Michael. So sorry everyone for this, but if you look at a previous episode with Coach Michael, we have answered this already. And Nika, hope that response was good. And we will move on here. We have a live comment from Jane. Me too. I feel like I'm going to trip up and I jerk. LOL. Common those jerks that can be really bothersome, but check out those playlists on the jerks and you'll find a lot of good information there. Okay, sorry about that one. So let's move on here. Alina has submitted some great questions. Here's another one. Let's read this. Hi Daniel, hope you're doing well. Thank you once again for sharing your thoughts, knowledge, and bringing the fresh ideas anytime. I've been sleeping well for about 2 weeks in a row, but the last week is a stubborn one, smiley. I keep having one night when I sleep absolutely fantastic, followed by a night of no sleep till 6 or 7 a.m. and then a good night again. I notice that the first hour or two of nights define if I have a good sleep or not. I can't help but view the initial sleep onset as a milestone. If I fall asleep, the rest of the night is smooth. Even if I wake up a few hours later, my brain is satisfied and I go back to sleep. But if this doesn't happen, I'm alert till the morning. On my quote-unquote bad nights, anxiety is always with me, and it seems it doesn't matter when whether I ignore it or work with it. It doesn't go away. Everything I've learned so far, education, gas break, natto kindness, rationally and empirically, I know this is so true, but my brain just kind of doesn't bite anymore. Like the line between effort and working on the right mindset, so thin, I don't really notice when I start pushing it too much. Hope you know what I'm trying to say. Absolutely. Considering that my brain, for some reason, chooses the sleep onset as the most important thing ever, how do you think one can overcome this and break the pattern? I really appreciate your support and looking forward to hearing from you anytime. I'll actually start in the end here and say, whenever, whenever I hear words like, how can I win this battle, or how can I overcome this? How can I conquer insomnia? How can I solve the riddle? How can I fix this? That tells a story of effort, actually. And like you just pointed out, Alina, effort. You're trying to achieve something. And whenever you are going in that kind of like, it's almost like you have an adversary or a puzzle or something you like to trick, then you're trying. And whenever you try, you sleep less. So I think the key is to use your words here. The way to break the pattern is not trying to break the pattern, and the way to overcome it is not trying to overcome anything, but, kind of befriend it and observe it and take note of it, but don't try to break the pattern or overcome anything. That's kind of like I think that was just some important, it may seem like semantics, but I think that's really important. Now, what we hear here is a lot of insight, but I think that the kind of overarching question today is the one of, okay, if I don't fall asleep pretty soon, I will I will be up all night. But if I fall asleep in the beginning, then I sleep pretty well. And this is actually very common phenomenon, if you want to call it. I call it a surfer's window. It's kind of like a surfer. They're looking for a wave, and if they catch the wave, good, they're all set. If they miss the wave, no surfing happening, right? And how can you explain this from a sleep physiology standpoint? Okay, so gas and brake, like Alina mentioned, gas is our sleepiness, sleep drive, and the brake is hyperarousal. If you're sleeping, you're not hyperaroused, you sleep. If you're not sleepy, you're hyperaroused, you stay awake. Insomnia is this, right? You're typically both sleepy and you're hyperaroused. So how can you explain this phenomenon? Well, if we think of it from a sleep drive perspective, it cannot be explained, because you would be more and more sleepy as the night goes on, right? So even if if you fall asleep in the beginning, actually you start depleting your sleep drive, right? But if you don't fall asleep initially, then your sleep drive becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, and it would make it more and more likely as the night goes along that you fall asleep. But that's not what you're observing. You're observing actually that if you don't catch that initial wave of sleepiness, then you're up all night, okay? Which tells us that this is a break issue. It is a total break issue. So the break is that hyperarousal again. So when you're going to bed, you may be more or less hyperaroused. You may be more or less resisting, insomnia. You may be more or less willing to have insomnia. You may be more or less accepting that you may be up all night, right? So if it is a night where you're actually not that resistant, you're like, it's okay if I'm up tonight, then there's not much gas. You fall asleep pretty easily. You sleep through the night. But having this window, thinking about this window, it adds a layer of pressure here, because now you have a kind of small amount of time to fall asleep. And if you don't fall asleep in this short amount of time, then you will be up all night. That's the thought process. And this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, which we see very often. So now you have this extra pressure, which adds a little bit of, more break there. And if it's not that much break, if you for some reason are kind of accepting that particular night, you still fall asleep, even if you have that kind of extra breaking going on. And then that gives you that relief. Even if you wake up later, you're like, but I fell asleep earlier, so it's going to be fine. That's the psychology there, and you do great. But if you miss that window, then your break goes all the way down, because you're thinking, I missed the window, now I'm going to be up all night. So it's really just thoughts. If you just, there are two ways to do it. One is to say that I realize that these are just thoughts, and of course I can fall asleep later at night, even if I don't fall asleep early, and kind of just dismiss this surface window idea that has happened. That can work. But I think what's always more powerful is acceptance, that you say, yeah, I didn't fall asleep early in the night, and I may very well be up all night, and that's all right. I'm going to do something that makes this night productive anyway. And when you're willing to have that be awake at night, then the brain doesn't get all kind of worked up about it, and it will allow you to sleep, even if you missed your surfer's window there. So Alina, I hope this made sense. Please let me know if you have any follow-up questions, and I think you'll do really, really well. Okay, follow-up question here. Hi, Daniel. Sorry if I'm being a nuisance, but I would like to mention that when I'm having trouble sleeping, my brain keeps convincing me I have SFI and I will never sleep again. And I will ultimately, but it's hard to keep these intrusive thoughts away at times, 100%. It is hard to keep these thoughts away because you're trying to keep them away. Racing thoughts occur when you're trying to stop thoughts. When you're not trying to stop thoughts, they don't become persistent. I think the best way to think of it is like a warning. Like when you have like intrusive thoughts, like what if you have SFI, for example, that's your brain trying to warn you. What if this happening? What if this happening? What if this is happening? It's kind of like you're trying to warn a friend that's getting into some kind of trouble. And if your friend then goes like, I don't want to listen, and you're trying to help your friend, you go like, but listen, this is important. I want to help you. I'm trying to help you. Why aren't you listening, right? But if your friend goes, okay, fine, tell me what's going on, and you tell them everything that's going on, and they're like, okay, I heard you, and I have a plan for all this. Then you're like, I don't have to warn you. Okay, good. So when you're trying to tell yourself that you don't have SFI, then it's kind of like you're pushing away, And sometimes that works. Sometimes you just kind of dismiss thoughts, like you have an intrusive thought, and you're like, but that doesn't make sense. It goes away. But often it is much more powerful to listen to the brain. When the brain is trying to tell you like, oh, what if you lose your job? Then you're like, okay, I'm going to imagine that. I'm going to imagine losing my job. I'm going to imagine the phone call, the conversation, telling my family, all that. When you are willing to experience X has no power over you. When you're showing the brain that you're listening, it feels no reason to warn you. So racing thoughts come from when you try to stop racing thoughts. When you are willing to listen and you allow thoughts to happen, they don't bother you. Like you don't get test, like bombarded with thoughts like that. Okay, hope that makes sense. And just let me know if you have another one, of course, of course. Okay, let's continue here. That was Alina. We have Ahyp. Okay, let's read this. Hi, Daniel. I need help. I can't sleep. I struggle with this every night. I don't want to die. I'm so young. It's hard to concentrate on sleep. I fear it every night. I used to sleep a lot all the time, hours and hours. Now I can't sleep for nothing. I feel like I'm not even sleeping. I close my eyes and I try to drift away, but I feel like I'm still awake. My eyes hurt because I try and I try. I don't know what it is. Is it normal for a 28-year-old? I'm having like bad insomnia where it can kill me. My mind feels foggy. I feel disconnected from myself. Memory's okay at times, but sometimes it's hard to remember. Doctors say I'm healthy, but I get like this weird twitches when I'm about to begin my sleep, and I just can't take it. I can't go back to sleep when they happen. And also my doctor don't want to give me anything to sleep because I'm too young. They don't want me to hook me on medications, but I feel like I'm suffering from this. So I'm so scared I'm going to die and I need answers. I cry a lot. It hurts me. Oh my gosh. Ahyp, I totally, everybody who hears this can feel your pain. And you're in this place, I call it Oz, this place where you're kind of bewildered, you're puzzled, you don't understand what's going on. It's a total mystery. And here's why it's so tricky, okay? When we have a problem, we try to solve that problem. That's what we do as humans. And most of the time that works great. When we have a tangible physical problem, your car is broken, you want to understand what's happening, you can fix it, boom, you're done. But the thing with insomnia is that the problem is your problem solving. You trying to understand the problem, that makes you agitated and you can't sleep. And then you try to problem solve even more. And another way to say it is, like, the way I say it is really like, it's hard to solve it. It's impossible really to solve a problem when problem solving is the problem you're trying to solve, okay? That's why you're in Oz. That's why everything seems really, really crazy. I try this didn't work. What if it's that? Maybe I should try this. And all this attention towards sleep, all this searching for the answer, all this trying to figure it out. That's why sleep isn't happening, And I just want to say that the fears you have, the fear of this is something really serious, maybe I can die, the anxiety, the trying, I'm trying so much. All that is very, very, very common, and if you scroll through these open classes, you'll hear people echo the same thoughts over and over and over and over again. And I always say that not to belittle anyone's problems, but to highlight that although your circumstances are unique, for anyone with insomnia has unique circumstances, insomnia in itself is the same for everyone. It's driven by the fear of being awake at night. Okay, so I think if you just like I said to somebody else in this episode, check out the description to any new video, look at the This Is Natto playlist, look at the success stories playlist. That will really give you a foundation. And when you understand, you will worry less. When you worry less, you will sleep better. Then you will let go. You won't try as much, and things will you'll go from this kind of like the vicious cycle that you're in to the virtuous cycle. You try less, you sleep better. You try less, you sleep better. You let go, you sleep, etc., etc. So hang in there, Ahyp, and let us know whenever you have any follow-up questions. Let's see. Zero is here. Thank you for your insight. I have one last question. Does dreaming typically occur during the last stage of sleep? And is dreaming a sign of a healthy brain? That's a good question. Dreaming, well, okay, so here's the thing. How do you know? How would anyone know that you're dreaming, right? The only way to know if somebody's dreaming or not is the recall of the dream. So you can wake people up and say, oh, were you dreaming? What were you dreaming about? And if you wake someone up from a stage 2 sleep, which is kind of like the main, most of our sleep is stage 2 sleep. If I remember correctly, something like 20% of people will say, yes, I dreamt. If you wake somebody up from REM sleep, then it will be more like 45%. So we have more dream recall from REM sleep, which happens in the late part of the night, than we have from other sleep stages. Does that mean we actually dream more in REM sleep? Who knows? We definitely have more dream recall. Also, presumably we do. But That's what we know about that. Now, is dreaming a sign of a healthy brain? There's no evidence whatsoever that it is. Some people sleep great and they actually say, I sleep great, I don't even dream. And they take not dreaming as a sign that they're sleeping great. Other people say, I sleep great, I dream all the time. It doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't mean anything. Dreaming can be a sign of poor quality sleep sometimes, when you have very fragmented sleep and you kind of remember all these vivid dreams, so you're hyper aroused, or dreaming can be a sign of great sleep. Somebody starts on a CPAP and like, I'm dreaming again. So dreaming can go either way. And I hope that answer helped you. Ellie says, hi Nell, my hyperarousal is less for the past weeks, not worrying about the time. Super important one. Not worrying about the time makes me sleep great. Funny thing is that I sleep with a really black, dark room. Even if I'm not sleepy, I just close my eyes and enjoy my thoughts. And I'm awake 4 hours later thinking like, when did I fall asleep? LOL. Sorry, having insomnia anxiety makes you question what's so natural and normal. And before I forget, I've heard it so many times that when somebody starts sleeping well again, they're like, I slept well. Like, how did that happen? Looks like it's a novelty almost. So I heard that one many times, but I'm always really glad when I hear somebody sleeping better. Ellie also says, Daniel, I'd like to agree with you. Insomnia comes from anxiety or fear. An easy way to think about it is insomnia is just another symptom of anxiety. I think this is a point that I make not often enough. And I say that because probably the most common thing I hear people say when they've gotten to a place where they sleep well is, I just don't care as much anymore, which to me means that they still care. Actually, it's not really true that you don't care. It's more that you become less attached to sleep. If you sleep a lot, you sleep a little, both are okay. That you don't pressure yourself and you sleep better. But maybe the second most common thing I hear is like, I realized that it was an anxiety. I realized it was anxiety that was causing my insomnia. And to me, it's almost like too obvious, I guess. So I don't point that out enough. I need to point that out much more, that yes, insomnia is a form of anxiety. It is a form of anxiety, because I think that often takes away mystery. And you're like, oh, it's anxiety. There's nothing wrong with my body, my brain. It's just anxiety, like Ellie says here. Very important insight. Ellie, super, super happy. Thanks for sharing this. Really made me happy right now. Cool. All right, we have one quick question left here from Neely. Hope you're doing well. I am, thank you. I want to continue exercising and getting out during the day, but it's so hard after bad insomnia. Very, very important point here. And I want to say two things here. I think generally speaking, it's good to not let insomnia run your life, okay? So even if you feel really tired, it is generally speaking helpful to kind of like show yourself that you can do things even if you're tired. And when you prove that to yourself, then there's less pressure to sleep, because you don't feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't sleep, then I can't do anything tomorrow, right? So when you show yourself that you can do things even if you're tired, that reduces the pressure to sleep and it allows you to sleep better. But there can be sometimes, even the most well-intended advice, like the one I just shared, can backfire. And that's when you pressure yourself too much. Let's say you feel really tired one day and you're just like, but I gotta get out and exercise. And then you force yourself out and you run and you hate every second of it. You're just kind of like, oh my gosh, what is happening to me? Then that can become too much effort. You're trying too hard in a different way. So sometimes the best thing to do is just self-kindness, to be like, I'm so tired today. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to take it easy. I'm going to have some ice cream and just chillax. And don't, like, without any judgment, just deploying self-kindness, being kind to yourself, gentle with yourself. Then what the magic with that becomes that you see that there's nothing wrong with me, What oftentimes when you have trouble sleeping and you're really tired, you can think like, why can't I get this right? Why am I always so tired? Why am I so exhausted? And when you kind of just deploy self-kindness, you go like, there's nothing wrong with me. I just had some trouble sleeping. Now I'm not gonna pressurize myself anymore. That really sets the stage for like further progress, So when you can, go out and show yourself that you can do things even when you're tired. But when that becomes like when that doesn't feel right, when you're kind of feeling like you're pressurizing yourself too much, then deploy self-kindness. Very, very important. All right, cool. Some last live questions here. Jane said, I thought I lost the ability to sleep and had panic attacks, but it was my hyperarousal, and I had to focus on positive things to calm myself down. I sleep great still. Love this. Jane, thanks so much. This is so helpful having these comments from yourself, from Ellie, giving people hope. Awesome. Love it. Cool. Jim says, hi, Daniel. I never receive the sensation of sleep, so it's incredibly hard for me to fall asleep at times. Is there any methods to somehow induce sleep, or is my brain not sending the right signals? Yeah, this is a common one. Okay, so we can start talking about the Houdini effect, which is when it's evening and you feel sleepy, right? You may feel really sleepy, and then you want to sleep, and then boom, it goes away. That's the Houdini effect. And you don't have that, Jim, and that's because you kind of have the Houdini effect all the time. And so talking about the Houdini effect, why I started with that was to kind of demystify that one, because it often seems like to someone who feels really sleepy and then suddenly feels alert that the sleepiness just disappeared. It vanished. It went into thin air. But there's no mystery here. It's just gas and brake. You were sleepy and you were not kind of worried in the evening because you were watching TV, and you didn't want to sleep. You actually wanted to be awake. So there was no hyperarousal. But as soon as you started thinking kind of like, I hope I can sleep tonight, ding, your brain became afraid of having insomnia. It became afraid of being awake, and it created that hyperarousal that just completely masks the sleepiness. So it feels like you're not sleepy whatsoever. And when you have a lot of trouble sleeping, you can have that Houdini effect all the time. You can be like hyper aroused all the time. Sometimes the hyperarousal is from anxiety. Sometimes it's from puzzlement. Sometimes it's from bewilderment. Sometimes it's just from curiosity. You're kind of just wondering why. You kind of like, why don't, it's so interesting. Even the thought like, why am I not feeling sleepy is enough for you to not feel sleepy. Even that low-level curiosity is enough to cause hyperarousal that keeps you from feeling sleepy at all. So there is no way to induce sleepiness. This is a common question. How can I kind of make myself feel more sleepy? And just, when you think in those terms, you are in the land of effort, if you will. You're trying to make yourself sleepy so that you can sleep. And effort always leads to more trouble sleeping. So the best way to go is towards education and acceptance, that you learn more about sleep, you learn more about insomnia, which you can do on this channel. And when you understand that, okay, there's nothing wrong with my sleep system. There is sleepiness inside me, but it's just so masked. It's completely blocked by my hyperarousal. Then that keeps you from kind of looking in different directions. It keeps you from kind of like figuring it out. And then the hyperarousal starts going down. Then you notice sleepiness and you go into a really good direction. And acceptance is always good too. Being like, instead of like, how can I make myself sleep? Then, okay, I'm going to be awake a lot probably. So how can I turn that into an asset? How can I befriend wakefulness? How can I make it okay for me to be awake? And that's also really good, because when you're not fighting to get sleep, then sleep starts coming your way. So Jim, very important question here. I'm very, very happy that you tuned in. Hope my answer made sense. Ellie says, not a question, but simple appreciation of what you dedicate yourself to help others that have insomnia problems by showing us education towards insomnia. Thumbs up to you, Martin and Michael. Ellie, thumbs up to you. Thanks so much for the support. And Malena is here live. Hey, Malena. Thank you also for all the support. We will actually end there. I will say that anyone who needs a little bit extra support actually then is available here. Then please check out our self-coaching program. You can find it on our website. We have 4 clients now, and it's a really nice group. But if you like more like one-on-one work, then BedTyme may be the answer for you. That's where I coach, so check that out as well. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll be back tomorrow, and then Friday special episode with Sasha Stevens. Don't miss that one. Okay, bye now.